Hello, everyone. Once again, welcome into another episode of the Poker News Podcast. My name is Jeff Platt. I'm here in the beautiful San Diego, California. I mean, you can't really tell it's that beautiful because this is obviously just a hotel room. He is Chad Holloway. He is at his beautiful home. Chad, what is up? What is going on, my good man?
Yeah, I got one more day at home before I head out to the East Coast. So we're going to take this country by storm. You're going to be out west.
There we go.
I'll be out east going to Parx Casino in Pennsylvania for the very first time. Very excited about that. Poker News has been there all month long doing updates on the Big Stack 32 series. And so I'm going to go there, wrap it up. There's an $1,100 main event. It's going to be pretty big, and definitely excited to check out Parx. It's one of those places like Thunder Valley out there that I've heard good things about, just have never been. So I'm really looking forward to it.
And I mean, it's Big Stax, right, Chad? Like STAX, right? Stacks, not stack. I mean, if you're going to go to the place for the first time, you know, you want to show some respect to the tournament. They always get good turnouts there, I feel like, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is the 32nd edition of the Big Stack. Is it Stack? How do you say
stacks with the
Stacks,
like,
Big Stacks. Okay,
stacks.
Big,
yeah. It's not
stacks.
one single stack. It's with an X. You know, it's cool.
Yeah, okay.
Multiple stacks.
Stacks on stacks. All right, I got it.
There we go.
It's going to be. I mean, it's the 32nd time they've run this series. I think Poker News came on board last year on the Big Stacks 30, and we're going to be there hopefully throughout 2020. But it's just one of those built from the ground up. It's from a casino. You know, they're not bringing in an outside tour. They've just really grown this with their local player base, with others across the country, and it's really impressive because it is getting massive fields. It has been getting massive fields, which is why, you know, we reached out to them and said, hey, let's get some updates on, because others around the world are going to want to know what's happening at your series.
Well, I love it. Another tournament that is starting to pick up pretty massive fields. Great transition there, of course. That would be the Sunday Masters over at GG Poker. We'd like to thank our friends at GG Poker. And Chad, I think now is the perfect time to toss to our friend Daniel Negreanu, the Poker Hall of Famer, to give you a little bit more info about GG.
What's up, people? D-Negs here. As you may have heard, I signed on as an ambassador for GG Poker, and you may be wondering why. Well, the key reason is the product, okay? They have the absolute best software on the market, not just the desktop, but also for mobile. In addition to that, they really have invested into this GG Masters, right? It's a $150 buy-in freeze-out. You know how I feel about freeze-outs. And there's also a big carrot at the top. Leaderboard prize up to $500,000. Each and every week so far, there's been added money. So come get yours. Use sign-up code PokerNews.
Jeff, I got to tell you, Daniel Negreanu, I was excited about him and GG Poker. He was streaming last week.
Right, on Twitch. Okay, right.
And so I fired it up on Twitch, and I'm not even joking. As soon as the screen popped up, he's all in on a flop.
Okay.
He needs he's got a flush draw and a gut shot straight draw. Needed like a jack or heart, and he didn't get there. Yeah, no, he didn't get there. He busted.
Wonder why, Chad.
Yeah, and then 30 seconds later, the stream was off, and I'm like, well, that sucked.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and I tweeted at him. I took a quick screenshot, tweeted at him, and then he just shot back a gif of a black cat. Because I guess
that's Chad Holloway, folks. You don't want him tuning in. You don't want him on your reel. I was watching him stream as well. You know what I love about GG is that you have the option to squeeze the cards. So it's like you can lift the cards up just like you're sweating them in a live table, and like somehow I cannot get over that. I think that's the coolest thing. So again, check out GG Poker. Use the sign-up code PokerNews. Stay tuned to Daniel on Twitter at RealKidPoker. Never know when he's going to fly up to Canada and stream again. So we move north for that. We move south for the Party Poker Live Million South America main event. That crowns another millionaire in the Brazilian by the name of Pablo Silva. He wins $1 million. He beats Fabio Coenese, heads up for that title. Party Poker Team Pro Dimitri Urbanovic finished in 7th. Chad, we covered this on PokerGO, and I feel like the pros who were watching this, who didn't make the trip, who saw the 25K, who saw the 10K, were kicking themselves for not going. Not just because there was an overlay in the main event, which there was about a $450,000 overlay or so, but you know, just the play is a little soft. I mean, not to take shots at anybody, but they just aren't as experienced, I guess, in South America. And it's like they have rewound a couple years, and I think some of these pros had a real advantage in South America.
Yeah, I mean, if you are a professional poker player and you want to try to go win big, South America's got to be on your radar.
Yeah.
You know, I think maybe the Asian market used to be the place where people went, but I feel like the Asian market's, you know, caught up. It's gotten a lot tougher. So maybe it is a little bit softer in South America. I remember going down there for some LAPTs for PokerNews, and I do recall the action being a lot more loose than, you know, other tournaments I had reported around the world. I remember that they were a big fan of slow rolling at a few of these South American stops.
Oh, no. We didn't see any slow rolls. That would have been amazing.
That was a little more built into their culture, I think, at least back then. But you know, these numbers coming out of South America are just, you know, pretty incredible, pretty impressive. Here we have a guy winning $1 million. You know, when I seen that 7-figure score, I'm like, wow, that's pretty impressive. And then, of course, you know, you have other South American stops. The BSOP, the Brazilian Series of Poker, is one that comes to mind that is just always attracting large numbers. And, you know, by all accounts, South America is a poker hotspot right now. So, yeah, Poker Pro should definitely be taking advantage.
I want to get your thoughts on this because the Party Poker Millions Tour moves to Sochi for the Super High Roller Series in March and then to Cyprus in May, and they're going to switch the main event format a little bit. They're going to turn it back to a 5K buy-in, but keep a $5 million guaranteed prize pool. I feel like at a place like Cyprus, this is a pretty big risk. Yes, I mean, I love to see it personally, the 5K buy-in and keeping that $5 million guarantee. I just feel like, and I don't know anything about Cyprus really, but I feel like they're taking a big risk, which they just continue to do at Party Poker, which is awesome to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a market that I think is risky, but, you know, going back to the 5K buy-in and keeping the guarantee, not so surprising. That's what they first started off doing. It was a big success. So I think when they switched to the 10K, they were thinking that, heck, that's going to get double the prize pool. And of course, it didn't work out that way. You know, you price out a lot of the market. You know, I'd be more prone to take a shot in a 5K than I would a 10K, unless it's, you know, the WSOP Main Event or WPT 5 Diamond or something like that. So I think that going back is a good idea, but I don't know. Yeah, Cyprus, it's not a place you think for 5Ks. So it'll be interesting to see, but, you know, they've got a great reputation throughout Europe. So I imagine they'll have a lot of players traveling in.
Yeah, and I think also with that 5K price point, it becomes easier to bring in satellite players. Obviously, those buy-ins will be different. Those events will be different. So I like it. It's a bold step, and we'll see how it plays out. We're seeing the World Series Poker schedule play out more and more. I believe we have one more announcement left, and that will probably take care of those buy-ins in between, you know, $2,500 and 5K. Maybe you'll see a mix. Stud high-low, Omaha high-low, maybe you'll see a 3K six-handed, maybe you'll see a 3K limit, stuff like that. But for the most part, the stage has been set. The latest announcement covered the online schedule, and it looks like we have, 14 online bracelet events? What were your thoughts when you saw this schedule?
Yeah, I mean, 14, that's a lot of bracelet events. I'm not a huge online guy. You know, I dabble on WSOP.com when I am in Vegas during the summer. I have played in the online bracelet events in the past. And, you know, from an operational standpoint for WSOP and Caesars, obviously it's great. It's,
Sure.
you know, you've got the platform, you've got the clients, it's already built in. There's no cost. You don't have to pay for dealers and things like that. So it's a great opportunity for them to pad their bottom line, I guess. And so I'm not really surprised to see that they've upped it to 14. I mean, I would like to see the ratio be a little lower. You know, if
Sure.
maybe 10% of the field. So if there's 100 events, maybe 10 of them are online bracelet events. I think that is a number I could get comfortable with. But when you get north of that, you know, I'm a little bit uneasy about it, I guess. You know, at least with all the 14 events, though, they've done a good job at varying the buy-in amounts, looking over the schedule as low as 400 all the way up to a $10,000 super high roller championship. So, yeah, I mean, and then they're also limiting most of them to single reentry. Some of them are freeze outs. So that's good too, I think.
Yeah, I do like that. And I mean, I'm with you. I go back and forth on this, and I love seeing a 10K online, and I love seeing a 3,200. You know, for me, it is just probably a little bit too much under the 1K buy-in, and it's terrific business for them. And I want WSOP.com to grow, and this is going to be the way to do it, right? To include more bracelet events. But I mean, you and I, and you're a World Series of Poker bracelet holder, like we love the value of the World Series of Poker bracelet. And if you want to throw in a buy-in or two under that 1K amount online, I think that's great. I think that's awesome. It looks like a little much to me right now to have a 400, a 777, an 800, a 500, a 500, 500, a 400, a 500, a 600, and a 500. Like the $500 turbo deep stack online, I'd rather them put a big guarantee on it on WSOP.com and not have it as part of the official World Series of Poker schedule and not award a bracelet. So again, with that said, I think it's really cool that they're going to go for it with the 10K. And I think they should have some of these 1Ks and maybe even one or two underneath that price point. But I just, you know, I cherish that World Series of Poker bracelet so much. It is so special. I'm okay with this overall, but I don't want to see this continue to grow, even though I do want to see WSOP.com continue to grow. Does that make sense? I feel like I took both sides of that.
Yeah, it does. You know, and a couple of things for improvement, if you will. If you're going to offer a lot of online events, I mean, slap some guarantees on some of them. I don't think any of these events have a guarantee. I think that's always it would make me more likely to fire an online event as somebody who doesn't play online, you know, a whole lot. And then also, I don't believe WSOP.com offers any sort of mixed games. It's just the Omaha and No Limit Hold'em. I mean, if I were them, I'd be trying to work on that. And then, you know, in the future, if you want to expand your online presence, you know, have a 8-game mix or a stud tournament or something like that.
Right. I mean, the software should be more than capable now. I think they do have mixed cash now. So they should be able to fire up a tournament, you know, a horse. Let's play a 1K horse online.
Right.
I think that'd be great. They have one PLO. I think, you know, nowadays your software, you need to have all games be mobile, right? Like the PLO requires a desktop connection. Like this is the 2020 World Series of Poker. It was cool when bracelets were introduced, but by now your software needs to be good enough where you can offer everything on somebody's phone or on somebody's tablet. And I think that is certainly something that needs to change before next year. So we mentioned the World Series of Poker, and you mentioned Five Diamond earlier, and we look at these, I would say, prestigious events that are on the calendar. And one of those is coming up, and that's the LA Poker Classic main event. This is a freeze out. I think it's one of the most prestigious tournaments on the poker calendar, right? Do you agree? Like every time you look at the calendar, you see like the LAPC around this spring area, and I think that's something that players always look forward to.
Yeah, the LAPC, I don't know the exact date that it launched, but it's definitely been a mainstay in the poker world for many, many years. And Matt Savage and his entire crew, you know, outside the main event, they have just a laundry list of events.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the schedule real quick. So it's almost the LAPC started in the middle of January, right? And it's going to run until, let's pull it up. It's still loading. That's how long it is.
I think until March 4th.
Yeah, the first week in March, and it looks like there's going to be 68 events throughout. And, you know, kind of what we were just talking about with WSOP.com, LAPC does a great job of offering mixed games. There's, you know, Archie. There's an Archie tournament. I mean, where else can you play an Archie tournament? There's, you know, Raz, there's Stud. There's just, it's everything. Matt Savage caters to those mixed game players, and so always gets a, you know, great turnout in the LAPC. I've never been there. I've actually never been to the Commerce, but, you know, on my list of places that I'd like to visit, the Commerce is right up there. And then obviously to go during the LAPC would be even better.
And something that they also do a great job of for their main event, satellite seats. And, you know, I think other tournaments across the country can take notes. I mean, looking at the schedule now, 2 main event megas the day before the main event, which does start next Saturday, that's February 29th. And in both of those, they're guaranteeing at least 50 main event seats given away. I mean, that's pretty sick for a 10K. And so, you know, you look at the LAPC and you're going to see a lot of satellite winners, which I think is pretty cool. And Chad, let me say right now that I am a maybe for the LA Poker Classic. Okay, I'm at Run Good now. We'll see how it goes. I finished 12th in this damn bounty tournament yesterday for $470, which is not quite $10,000. So we're on our way. And so again, a maybe to play in the LAPC main event. How's that sound?
Well, I'll tell you what, one of the things I like about the LAPC, and maybe you'll get your hands on one, are the trophies that they give out.
The trophies are sick. The
Remingtons, the Remingtons, the cowboy on the galloping horse. It's, I don't know, just iconic. And I love looking at the winners' photos, seeing all the players posing with those, their cards, the backdrop. They hit a home run when it comes to the trophy and the winner shots for sure.
All right, got a couple winners to get to. Got Brent Hanks to get to. He is our guest for today's episode. But first, we would, of course, like to thank our friends at Run It Once. That's once.run/PNPod for an exclusive deposit bonus for our PokerNews podcast listeners. Run It Once, they're just giving a bunch of money away. Even though their boss, the owner, Phil Galfond, is not having the best time with the Galfond Challenge, Run It Once continues to be unique in the way they're just giving money in their rakeback program and Splash the Pod in their Legends Rewards program. And Chad, we say it every week, but I don't know about you. I'm pretty jealous that I can't fire up Run It Once.
Yeah, I mean, it's right up there with, you know, if I had online poker options, Run It Up would honestly probably be the first one that I'd pull up because I've never gotten a chance to experience it. I hear great things. This Phil Galfond Challenge, despite him losing, has still drummed up a lot of excitement. You know, I've been paying attention, watching the streams, and it just looks like a great site. I wish I could take part of it. Who knows? Maybe in the future that'll happen. But in the meantime, you know, those listening that can try it out definitely should.
All right, that's once.run/PNPod. Potomac Winter Poker Open main event wraps up. Former World Series of Poker main event champion Joe McKeehen finishes in second place as Matt Sesso beats him heads up for almost $190,000. Chad McKeehen almost gets the job done.
Yeah, it was a really back and forth heads up match. I was reading the PokerNews live updates from the tournament. They both kind of flirted with the chip lead there, and then it came down to one big flip. McKeehen ended up losing it and could not mount a comeback. And, you know, so he had to settle for second place and, you know, $115,000 to help soothe the pain. And, you know, as you said, Matt Sesso taking it down for almost $190K. This is another one of those tournaments on the East Coast that has really just started to grow and become big. The Potomac Poker Open. Now, this is the first time they've done a winter edition. They usually do it in August after the World Series of Poker. They will do that again this year. It's also worth noting, Jeff, that this is the first tournament in the newly launched East Coast Poker Tour, which joins up, we've talked about it before, which joins up the MGM properties. So MGM National Harbor, MGM Springfield, and Borgata. So Matthew Sesso off to a good start in that.
Galen Hall finished in ninth. I saw he was a big chip leader with a couple tables left and just could not win an all-in and a call, could not win any flips. Let's move over to Tunica, Mississippi, and that's where we find Isaac Kempton. Oh, no, that would be Tampa. I typed in Tunica, Tampa, slightly different cities. Tampa would be in Florida, and the winner of that main event is Isaac Kempton for $290,974. And David Tuthill, Chad, is your casino champion.
Yeah, it was a really impressive stop for the World Series of Poker circuit. First time they visited the Hard Rock, Seminole Hard Rock down there in Tampa. Just monster fields through all the prelims. We had mentioned the opening event in the last episode, over 2,400 runners, a $166,000 prize to Byron Johnson, and a $600 buy-in event. So that was just setting the tone for the entire series. You know, looking at the main event, it was Kempton who was playing in just his second ever live tournament.
Unbelievable.
And, you know, 22 years old, he is, you know, making a name for himself. So, you know, remember that name, keep an eye out for it. And to get the job done, he had to defeat David Jackson, who is just a grinder on the American circuit. He's even ventured outside the United States a little bit, but had lots of success at the Borgata. I mean, David Jackson is just one of those names who is constantly going deep. And, who knows, maybe we'll get him on the PokerNews podcast at some point. I'd love to sit down and chat with him a little bit more. And then, as you mentioned, David Tuttle, he won a ring early on in the series, took down event number 3. It was his second ever gold ring. He went on to make a couple more final tables, some more cashes. So he, too, got a seat into the 2020 Global Casino Championship. There's a recap up on PokerNews.com. If you just search Tampa, it'll come up. And then there's a list of all the ring winners down at the bottom. And, Jeff, I don't know if you have it pulled up there, but there are definitely some familiar names on that list.
Yeah, I would say so. And this Tampa stop really drew in a lot of pretty solid players. Ryan Yu in the mix, David Prosiak. I got to get back to Kempton though, because it's his second live tournament ever. He finishes as the chip leader at the end of day 1. He finishes as the chip leader at the end of day 2. And he wins the tournament on day 3. I mean, this kid's just going to think poker's the easiest thing imaginable, right?
Yeah, I mean, he did lose the chip lead a little bit on day 3, but other than that, it's pretty impressive to stay on the top like that, especially against the competition that we talked about. David Jackson was at the final table, James Calderero, Brad Saylor, John Ott. He had to go through a pretty stacked field. So I said, keep an eye out for him, because he's taken a leave of absence from college and is pursuing poker full time right now. So I won't be surprised to see him, make some waves in the Florida poker scene on the WSOP circuit. And, who knows, maybe that Global Casino Championship come August.
Yeah, look out, folks. Remember the name Isaac Kempton. All right, Chad, we've talked about this for the last couple of weeks. It is what the poker world has been buzzing about. It is the return of high stakes poker. Poker Central acquired the rights to the show, so not only will they stream all of the old episodes on PokerGo, but you'll find some new ones somewhat soon on PokerGo. So we had to get a little scoop. We had to talk to my friend, my fellow commentator, I should say, and a producer on the program, and that would be Brent Hanks. Check out that conversation I had with him earlier in the week. All right, and just like that, joining us now on the PokerNews podcast, not because we were hurting for guests, but because we wanted this man. He's been on the top of our list for a while. It is PokerGo analyst. He does, commentary, break desk. He's a producer, technician, janitor.
Jesus.
He does it all.
Custodian.
Brent Hanks.
I just leave it a custodian. Yeah.
Custodian. That's right. The PokerGo custodian. How are you, sir?
Fantastically well. Thanks for asking, Jeff. Pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on. And do you know why we wanted to have you on?
Well, I assume it's because the one thing you didn't mention is that I'm a YouTube star now. Some might say that I'm a little bit like Logan Paul, but so that's it.
And you're referencing that because the Poker Central podcast with you and Remco Rinkema is now on YouTube, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I'm a YouTube star.
Right, and because you all get so many views, you translate that into you becoming a YouTube star.
Right.
Yes.
It did so well on PokerGo that they decided to give it away for free on YouTube.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I won't check the view count. I'll just kind of trust you on that it's absolutely in the stratosphere. We did want to have you on because of the news that the poker world has been buzzing about over the last couple of weeks, and that would be the return of high stakes poker. Can you give us a little insight, maybe a little behind the scenes as to, kind of how the idea came about to go fight for it, to get the rights to it, and to start developing new shows?
Man, yeah. I mean, as much as I can tell you, I will. And to be honest, it's frankly because I don't really know a ton about it going forward. But Sam Simmons may have, I don't know if it's public or if he talked about it on some other podcasts or interviews that he did. We have been working on high stakes poker and acquiring the rights to that show and owning the content for a little while now. So I'd want to say that has been maybe as much as like 6 months in the works. And finally they came to terms and a deal was made. So huge for us, huge for PokerGo, and huge for the poker community as a whole.
Yeah, I actually wanted to talk to Sam about this, Brent, but then Oliver Biles stole him for a PokerNews Q&A. So
There you go.
you were just
and
kind, and
that
then
also had a lot of views, right?
yeah, oh yeah. The viewership is
Yeah.
just through the roof. And then I wanted to talk to Maury about it, but I didn't want to bother him. So
Right.
you're kind of
It's a
like kind of
holiday
next
after
up
all. Yeah.
on the list. Take me back, years ago. Were you a high stakes poker fan? Does do any episodes stand out? Did you love the show?
I'm terrible with knowing what episode was what, but obviously, diehard fan as far as just watching every time it was on TV. Particular moment that always sticks out is, of course, when Brad Booth just bluffed Phil Ivey with bricks of cash, and he had like 3-5 offsuit or 2-5 offsuit, and Ivey, mucks kings on a ridiculous board. I don't think anyone really can say that they've bluffed Phil Ivey, and I don't think anyone has ever done it on TV, with the exception of Brad Booth, which I don't know where Brad Booth is now. I'm guessing he tried too many of those bluffs going forward, and maybe it got called a few times. But either way, just ridiculous stuff, particularly from that episode. One thing, and I'll get to this so you don't have to ask me the question. I'm getting it all the time. Is this going to be like the old days?
Sure.
Is Gabe Kaplan going to be back? Is AJ Benza going to be back? Are they going to be filmed live, or are they going to be, recorded, edited, cut down, just like the old school show? And I haven't even talked about this on my own show yet, but what I can tell you is that's sort of the plan, right? We don't want to go away from, and we're in the early stages of planning this out, but we don't want to get away from why that show was so successful. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, will Gabe Kaplan be back as doing commentary? I hope so. Yeah, that's part of the plan. So all that stuff I can tell you is being discussed, being worked on. And this show needs to be different than what is already out on PokerGO right now. It needs to be different than Poker After Dark. It needs to be different than Super High Roller Cash Game. So that being said, maybe it won't be live, Jeff.
And that's got to be a challenge for you, right? To differentiate between, say, a super high stakes Poker After Dark cash game and the new version of high stakes poker.
Huge challenge, huge challenge. Maury and I are both going to work on, how do we put together the best lineup? What does that even mean? And there's always going to be a balance, because you're very rarely going to have the elite pros willing to just sit down at the table and battle each other for days on end.
Sure.
It doesn't happen. Back in the day, during high stakes poker, sort of, the golden era, you got to remember that these online sites, Full Tilt and PokerStars, were just shoveling money,
right.
Just dumping it down your throat. You had too much money to work with. And that went well with the players. The players get an hourly, they're excited to be there. Some of these folks have sponsorships, and it just isn't costing them a nickel. So that part of the game, obviously, we know has changed. We just don't have that sort of sponsorship money again yet. And hopefully over the course of the next, 3, 4, 5 years, that could change.
But with that said, the interest in playing on the new season has got to be pretty high. I mean, I'm sure you've heard from a ton of people.
It hasn't stopped. I mean, even today, I literally got a message today about it. And some of the players, I can give you a short list of guys that have reached out and said, I'm willing to play anybody. They prefer, of course, if the lineup is balanced and you've got some soft spots in there. But, Jason Kuhn, Bryn Kenny, Garrett Adelstein, Phil Gelfond reached out, especially if it's pot limit Omaha, although that could have changed recently. Not exactly faring too well in his own challenge.
He might need a backer for the new version.
Yeah. So, there is a list of players out there where these guys are willing to just come in and swing around and play. The stakes, 100%, are going to be 200, 400 with a 100K minimum buy-in. So it'll be uncapped. Ooh. But it's going to, again, we want to make sure we replicate why this game was so successful to begin with.
Yeah, so we still have the potential of the $1 million buy-in with the bricks of cash, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, the bricks of cash to me means a lot. I don't know if there's any sort of gaming against it. I don't know if Aria's, because it's going to be at the Aria, obviously. We're going to play inside PokerGO studio. And wait until you see how different. You won't even believe that you're inside the studio when that game's going on. The entire set is going to be redone. It'll look completely different. Again, You mentioned it earlier. I mentioned it as well. This show can't look like anything else.
Yeah.
So it won't. It just won't. Nothing will look identical. So I'm really excited for it.
Okay, fired up for that. So let's shift from high stakes cash to high stakes tournaments. Super High Roller Bowl Russia, 250K buy-in. It's in the middle of March. You and I will be on the call, and you're expecting a pretty big turnout for that, right?
Yeah, we're going to have a huge turnout for that. It goes without saying, anytime that Paul Pua is involved, and it sounds like at the moment he's going to be involved, when he's going to bring his players from the Triton side, that word starts to that moves around quickly, and more of the pros, more of the recreational players alike, they're all going to show up. So will it be the largest Super High Roller Bowl ever? I think it's got a shot. I really do.
That's put on in partnership with PokerGo, with Triton Poker, and with Party Poker. Discuss a little bit about that partnership with Party Poker and how you think that's benefited PokerGo to air more and more of Party's content.
I mean, it's just a no-brainer. Well, especially the way that Rob Young sort of handles their business. It's all out there. He gets the poker people involved. He, asks for feedback all the time. It just makes sense, to partner up with these guys. And if they're going to be doing tours and they want to include Super High Roller Bowl along those stops, perfect. We're willing to do that. And Super High Roller Bowl has now become what started off as just a once a year happening event at the Aria to now it's a worldwide event. And we've now been in Australia. We've been in London. We've been in the Bahamas. And of course, now we're going to be heading to Russia for the first time. So that'll be 4 stops outside of the United States and it looks like this could continue, this sort of trend.
Love to hear it. And speaking of Party Poker, we covered Million South America last week. Do you get the sense, Brent, that some guys were watching who usually play 10Ks, who usually play 25Ks, and they're thinking, damn it, why in the world did I not head out to Uruguay to fire these?
It's another one of those things, Jeff. You and I, of course, did the call. And while we were doing that, I mean, you saw the messages I'd be getting on my phone or whatever. Players just saying, oh, my God, how did I miss this? What was I thinking? From even the 25Ks, like you said, and of course, the 10K main event, it was just absurd. The fact that they had an overlay is mind-boggling. Yeah. I mean, it looked like these guys were satellite players. You had some of the locals, and it was like No Limit Hold'em in the year 2000 all over again. Like, it was crazy how this game was being played by certain players, and I'm not trying to make the play sound that poor or whatnot, but of course,
just much less experience.
Yes, a lot of less experienced players, and these guys just getting in there and having a ball and having a blast, and you even saw that at the final table, and I think that's refreshing.
Yeah, I think so too. There's definitely a fun tournament to cover. All right, man, set the scene for us. U.S. Poker Open, March 19th through the 31st, 12 events this year. So why the shift in strategy with those events?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I didn't really want to do that long of a series, and I was overruled.
What? You get overruled?
I was. Yeah, I know. It's about every other day. It just so happens that we're gonna experiment, right? We're gonna go a little longer, and we also drop the price point down. So if you look very carefully at the schedule, and I know you have, you and I have talked about it, the first 10 events are all 10K buy-ins. Typically, half the schedule is going to be a 25K, here and there, and then a 50K and a 100K. Well, not this year. We're doing 10 straight 10Ks, which we think will bring in more players. There's more of an interest, especially at that price point. Yeah. A 25K sort of semi-high roller, and then a 50K high roller main event. So my hope, and I don't know if it's going to happen, but I want someone to get hot during the early 10Ks and then try and parlay that thing into a U.S. Poker Open title, take home the Players' Championship, which is, by the way, I think there's a $100,000 cash prize on the line as well as a trophy. It might be 50K, so don't quote me on that. I might be wrong in the interview. Sorry. And then
well, it's a podcast, so we wouldn't quote you on anything. We wouldn't write an article on this podcast appearance, with all due respect to how good it is.
Are you serious? I thought I get the editorial treatment. Well, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
But either way.
No offense, though, man.
It's going to be 50K or 100K up top. And that goes along with, and I think will be integrated well with our Player of the Year at the end. So that for sure is going to be a $100,000 prize at the end of the year. Sam Sabro went back-to-back in the High Roller of the Year. So let's see what sort of interest and let's see how this generates. It's an experiment, I think, for the U.S. Poker Open, and I think it's a good one.
Yeah, I like the idea. And I like how it's not all no limit hold and you mix it up with pot limit Omaha, you throw in a big bet mix. I think that's something that the U.S. Poker Open just needs to keep. That's what makes the USPO the USPO, and it'll draw the heavy hitters. And hopefully, like you said, we'll see some new faces. And just to confirm, it looks like $50K to the USPO winner. And
there you go, $50K. That's right.
$100,000 to the High Roller of the Year. All right.
You always know about it more than I do. I don't know why. I should be asking you the questions.
Yeah, but you write the emails with all of this. You go after the players and still cannot remember. Maybe you have too much going on in your mind.
This particular series, the U.S. Poker Open, I mean, when we first started this, we had visions of a decade down the road, 2 decades down the road. This thing could turn into a 30 event series.
Wow.
And that was sort of the plan, is what, let's see how this develops. Let's let this brand sort of establish itself. And, that's why we went to 12. I thought it was a little too much. I thought maybe we could do 8, and continue to gradually add events year in and year out. But we're going right to 12 events this year. And let's see what happens year after that, and see if we can continue to expand.
We're getting to that time where we see the World Series of Poker release more and more of their schedule. What does the Brent Hanks summer schedule look like right now, if you had to guess? Are you going to be firing more than commentating? Is it going to be all commentary? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Ideally, I would like to continue to work on this new craft, as far as being color commentary, particularly alongside you, which, I love that. Last summer I was working with Tuckman. I know Tuckman does a ton of the events, so
screw that guy.
I'll do as many of those. I'll do as many of those as I possibly can alongside Tucky. Whatever Dan Gotti and Maury Escandani want to do with me, I'm just going to go out there and play ball. If I'm not doing commentary, I'm going to play, but I also know that it's tough, being away. My kids are home all summer with my wife, and that's a long summer. So I'll just try and stay as balanced as I can from a family aspect as well.
But the potential looms of a Brent Hanks blast off in the main event.
I don't ever think I'm going to miss the main event. I mean, until I'm just, too unhealthy or just way too busto. which could happen. That could be next year, but
it could happen.
The plan is, it could happen very soon. But the plan is to always play the main event. That'll be like the one thing on the calendar that I just won't miss. I also think I read that there's 14 online events. Yeah, which is bananas. But that's easy, right? You can just stay home, win a bracelet essentially in a day. I don't know if they're going to plan on having a live final table for those things, or it's all online. I don't know.
It's all online.
Either way, online. There you go. Yeah, there you go. So maybe those. I'll play some of those in the main event.
All right. Finally, rescue some of us from Bustoville. Give us a couple of NCAA hoops futures right now. Who do you like? Who stands out as some value spots?
Okay, well, you're catching me a little early before I look at the lines, which because you and I talk about this stuff on the side. But I think you can get them real cheap right now. Illinois, their number one scorer, is out. He's injured right now, and they're on a bit of a downward slide. But I think that team, when they're healthy, when they're all together, that's a ton of value. At least it should be a lot of value. So they're a bit of a sleeper. I think I like Oregon. And they just blew out Utah last night. Mm-hmm. So they're looking really good. I don't know what price you can get Oregon at, but they're just a complete team. And they also shoot the 3-ball. Teams that get hot during the NCAA tournament are teams that are knocking down a bunch of threes. I try and target 3-point shooting teams. I think Oregon is one of those. I look
30 to 1, by the way, for Oregon.
Oh, 30 to 1 is great. Yeah, sign me up for that. I look at a team like Penn State. There's always this team that just come out of the woodworks. I think Penn State and Dayton, which Dayton I'm sure is on everyone's radar now. They're 5th in the country. Mm-hmm. Penn State just cracked the top 10. They're 9th. Big 10 from top to bottom this year is just stacked. That's why I brought up Illinois right away. I think Penn State could be really tough in the tournament. They're just a tough out. Tremendous inside game as well as a hot 3-point shooting team, and they're also missing their number 2 scorer right now. So the fact that they keep winning without that sort of player speaks highly of them.
Penn State 30-1, Dayton 12-1. You mentioned Illinois. Illinois is at 100-1. Do you think you should fire that now or wait? Because like you mentioned with their injuries, could they lose another couple games? Could you get them at a better price?
Get them now, because they're going to get this kid back. And
Okay.
I'm telling you, when he, I forget his name. I'm a real shark, but I forget this kid's name. I just know that I've watched him play a bunch of times this year, and he's out right now, and he's easily he is their most prolific scorer.
Okay.
He wants the ball at all times. They need it, and with him in the lineup and healthy, they're going to be good. You're not going to get them better at 100-1. At least I don't think. That their schedule's pretty soft right now for the remainder of the Big Ten, and they're going to make the tournament. There's no question about that. I think they're projecting 10 to 11 teams from the Big Ten to make the tournament. Now I think there's only 14 or 15 in the league.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Big Ten is really strong. And then the chalky one, it's I really like Maryland. I watched them just beat the pants out of Michigan State down the stretch when it mattered. Talk about 3-pointers. Their guards are good. My 2 chalk picks, I'd say Maryland. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm going to go Baylor, the number 1 ranked team right now. They're just Baylor. I was not on them. They've got a tough matchup with Kansas this week, too. Keep an eye on Baylor. If they knock down Kansas, they might be the elite team, number 1 overall seed, and they might be that good to just win the whole thing.
Wow. All right. That's good stuff right there. And hopefully you make us some money. If we look at your history as a sports bettor, you will probably just force us to lose an additional amount of money, but we still appreciate the knowledge. You are a big college hoops fan, so I'm going to fire
Love college hoops
on your plays. All right, my man. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right. Our thanks to Brent Hanks for joining us. And Chad, he gave us a little scoop. I think he's implying that, while they shoot it at the PokerGO studio, this will look like a high stakes poker set. It'll look completely different than anything we see that comes out of the studio. He mentioned that, people obviously when they watched the show, they were just seeing 1-hour episodes, and he was implying that would return, that it wouldn't necessarily be a live version of high stakes poker. And then, he said the name Gabe Kaplan and said that, they are trying to make it kind of like the old show in that regard. So I'm pretty fired up for a little high stakes poker. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, thanks to Brent and a quick shout out to him. I love him on the Poker Central podcast. I love the guy cracks me up. His sense of humor is spot on. I absolutely love it. And I really appreciate him sharing some of the details there, and really glad to hear that they at least have that appreciation and love and recognition that trying to incorporate some of that, the old school stuff that people first fell in love with into the new version. I think it's going to be good. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that, to say the least. All right, Chad, you're a Survivor fan, right?
Jeff, we're recording this on a Wednesday, and the new episode is later tonight. I'm already looking forward to it.
Oh, you're fired up. All right, this season is Survivor Winners at War. Now, I saw via Twitter, via other social media, that poker made its way into the mix. How would you break down what took place on Survivor last week?
Right. So this new season is called Winners at War, and it's brought back 20 former winners from the 39 seasons of Survivor. And among them are some winners who have played together in poker. And a couple of years ago, they were on an episode of Poker Night in America. It was I think a 5-5 or 2-5 cash game at the Gardens out there in LA. It was Boston Rob Mariano, Tyson Apostle, who are both big presences at Run It Up Reno for many years, good friends. And then they were joined by Jeremy Collins and Kim Spradlin. And during the poker game, Tyson said, "Hey, if we're ever on the Survivor together, this is the alliance here," right? Kind of half joking. And, they said, "Oh yeah." And it was just a kind of a throwaway line. Okay. Well, now they're actually on the season, and other players took note of that poker game, and they were in fear of this, quote, poker alliance, as they dubbed it. Now, whether or not there actually is one, probably.
Wait, sorry to cut you off real quick, but the other players in Survivor, like, had they watched Poker Night in America? Like, how did they know that this was a thing, that these guys had discussed it?
Sure, at least one of them did, because he's
Okay.
the one who kind of stoked the fire, the fear that,
Okay.
and Survivor is like poker. There's a community, they travel to the same events together, charity events. They get to know each other outside the game. And so I think word just spreads that, so-and-so is going to get the opportunity to do this. And so maybe word spread that they had the opportunity to appear in this game that was on TV. Whatever the case, there was concerns about this. And so they kind of, got targeted or left out of alliances. And it was the first week and, kind of put them in a precarious situation. And I'm curious to see if it carries on, throughout the season. And I just thought it was really cool that in this mainstream show, that one of their biggest seasons ever, they're talking about poker. And they actually aired a clip of the poker game from Poker Night in America to give viewers the context of what this Poker Alliance was all about. And it was, for me, it was my two worlds colliding, because I love Survivor and of course have worked in poker for a long time. So I just thought it was really, really cool.
With our guys Tapes on the call, have you ever applied to Survivor? Have you thought about applying?
It's
Being
been
a contestant.
I did back in my 20s, maybe, when I was a little a lot more free time and in a little better shape. I'd love to do it again, and it'd be a fun show to do. But like poker, the game has morphed so much from when it aired in the 2000s to what it's morphed in now. The strategy, the evolution of it all. There are definitely a lot of parallels between Survivor and poker. And if you go on PokerNews.com and type in Survivor into the search bar, there are quite a few articles we've done over the years of the overlap of the game. And then, of course, last season, Ronnie Barda was on Survivor for, one episode.
For a minute?
Yeah,
for
a
minute or two. Yeah, okay. You can also, I did an interview with Tyson Apostle in the Bahamas at PSPC, and we talked about that overlap. And I know it's cliche by now for these guys to do that, like, how does Survivor help you in poker? How does poker help you in Survivor? But it is really interesting, to your point, the strategy elements and how they can really play out in both. So that's Survivor, Winners at War. And Chad, I'm going to dive into the season. So I'll be right there with you. We'll give some updates maybe at the end of our podcast episode. So I'm not that far behind, right? Last week was the premiere.
Exactly. Yeah. If you watch that one and then tonight's the second episode, you'll be right caught up. Okay. You can watch the rest every week.
Okay. I can get into the mix there for sure. Just one last story. We all know the trials and tribulations that Phil Ivey has gone through, mainly due to his Baccarat gambling and, and his edge sorting and the casinos fighting him and him fighting the casinos, et cetera, et cetera. Well, of course, this story is good enough to make a movie about it. Not necessarily about Ivey, but about his Baccarat machine, so to speak, his cohort. Awkwafina will play the role of Kelly Sun in this Baccarat-based movie. I think she's awesome. So I think it's a great call to do that. And I'm looking forward to this kind of a movie about the trials and tribulations of Kelly Sun and of Phil Ivey as they kind of move through these different casinos and the battles that they've had with them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it in that it's based off the Cigar Aficionado article by Michael Kaplan. He's always done a great job in all his poker-related content. And then they also have Andy Bellin doing the screenplay, which is exciting because he knows poker. He's written a poker book before. He's, a name that I've heard before in the poker world that has ventured out into the world of Hollywood and screenwriting. So I think that is going to be a good combination. I think the casting of Awkwafina is going to be great. I've actually met the real Kelly Sun.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, on one occasion, it was during the World Series of Poker Europe, I think in 2012, I want to say. Her and Phil Ivey were out there, and she was a little bit older, at least by my estimation, than Awkwafina is right now. But I think they should be able to pull it off. I'm just curious who they're going to get to play Phil Ivey in this thing. And I just I've been brainstorming who could it be, and like, I don't want it to be, but just the connections of Kevin Hart to poker. And he was also in Jumanji: The Next Level with Awkwafina. So maybe she puts in a good word. I don't know. I don't think Kevin Hart would make a good Phil Ivey. I don't even know if they're going to refer to the player as Phil Ivey. Maybe they're just making a fictional character or what have you. But yeah, we'll see. I mean,
That's interesting. You could see them going that direction, because if they go in the direction of Awkwafina, they might be trying to make this more of a dramedy of sorts. So humor might play a bigger part of it, and that might push them towards Kevin Hart. We'll keep track of that movie for y'all. All right, that'll wrap things up on this episode of the Poker News podcast. Chad is off to the East Coast. I'm here on the West Coast in San Diego. We'll keep you posted of our travel next week. I'll catch up with Tana Karn and maybe some other people here at the Run Good Poker Series, maybe indeed Boston Rob from Survivor. So thank you all so much for watching, for listening, all the good stuff. Thanks to our friends at both GG Poker and Run It Once. For Chad Holloway, for our friend Sarah Herring, I am Jeff Platt, and deuces.